So I was doing some market research for my clients as I usually do every other day, and I see there's almost 16,000 houses for sale right now in the Phoenix, Arizona area. But when I looked at the under contract number, I really thought about that number because when we look at data, we don't really actually think about what that data means. And I thought, hey, there's actually 5,957 people that are currently under contract to buy a home right now. With interest rates being as high as the 7.5 range, prices being an all-time high, and everybody predicting and anticipating some kind of market adjustment very soon, how is there still 6,000 people buying a house right now? So I found a post online that had the same exact question only like 20 days ago, where people are just being asked, why are you buying a house right now? Let's go over what the post said and let's read over some of these answers to just get a good idea of what people are telling themselves why they're buying a home right now. And I would love for you, as you're watching this video or once you're done with it, leave a comment below and explain if you are buying right now, why you're buying, and if you're not buying, why you're not buying and what you're waiting for to change. So let's get to it. First-time home buyers getting a 7.5 to 8% interest rate. Why are you buying a house right now? Other than a suitable rental not being available, I can think of some unique situations, but I don't think it encompasses the majority. I ask because it doesn't make financial sense to me, and I figure that my situation is similar to others. I rent and I pay about $2,800, and a moderately slightly better place with interest rates and all other factors could cost me about $3,800 a month. Paying $1,000 more a month, just over 25% more, does not make it worth it for a slightly better place. Yes, you will build equity and refinance later, but how much later? And how much will you have already put into the house by the time you sell? Throwing numbers around, for me at least, I need rates at 5% or less to make it worth it. If I wanted the same type of home, it would cost me $500 or $600 more a month, but why start a huge mortgage on the type of dwelling I'm trying to leave? I think rates will eventually get there again one day, but until then, I'd feel like I was throwing lots of money away the first few years or even longer. Like, you can't even get a $600K home now, sell it years down the road for $900K after you paid $1.2 million into it, mortgage rates, repairs, upgrades. Yes, I do realize demand will go up rates. So off the bat, the logic is very sound. The finances don't really add up. The money doesn't really add up. The cost of owning a house or the desire to own one doesn't really outweigh the ability to save those $1,000 a month or just not be as invested into a 30-year mortgage when you're going to pay so much in rate when prices go up or down. So I am totally following the logic and it totally makes sense. So let's see what some of these answers are. Easy Independent 313 says you might be waiting a very long time for rates to go down to 5%. That's true. The odds of this happening in the next few years are very unlikely. So for anyone who's just waiting for the rates to come in at a certain number or waiting for prices to drop at a certain number, let me just tell you this right now. If you're someone who's like very logic brained, it's always going to feel uneasy to buy a house. Right now, that is being flared and triggered. And right now, there is a solidifying evidence, right? Like you have this idea being reinforced by how crazy things are. But this idea that when things are cheaper or rates are better, you're going to magically feel like, oh, now it's the right time is not true. It's always scary to buy. It never feels like the right time. So get this idea out of your head, the saying, hey, once rates hit this number, I'll be buying. Yes, it's good to keep an idea on that because you have an idea of what your monthly payment should be, but just know, don't have that be your only key factor. Okay, Owl says, to get the space I wanted, and not to have to deal with another crappy landlord. Even with the interest rate, mortgage, and rent was equal, I almost gave up purchasing and thought if I rent again, I need something that had all the amenities and features I wanted in the area I wanted. So those two very good points, let's kind of talk about it a little more. So obviously the first one from Ladder Shower being like, hey, because we want to move. We are sick of having to move every year or 2 years. And the big things that really stick out to me is the stability of owning a home and pride of ownership. So yeah, the numbers suck, and he or she is clearly saying the numbers are not great at all, but having to move every year to 2 years is extremely mentally and emotionally taxing. So to this person, it makes sense to just be able to settle roots in, and yes, the numbers are going to suck, but eventually down the road, it'll figure itself out. As long as you can, this is an okay line of thinking in my opinion, but you just really want to make sure you're not stretching your budget and you're buying within your means, and not everybody has the luxury of having that because they live in like a larger city or something along those lines. I can attest, I hate moving. I absolutely hate moving. I don't like the idea of having to uplift everything, especially when you have kids that go to school district and whatnot. And sometimes you get lucky and you get a great landlord that you can stay in there for multiple years, but that's like, it's more than likely you're going to have a crappy landlord that you're going to have to get away from, right? So if you are considering moving soon, this is why it should be. You need to have a strong personal reason that doesn't quite make sense financially. Now, what I mean by that is a lot of people still see their house or their purchase of a house like an investment. Some of them even see it like a slot machine. Hey, bro, my cousin Edgar bought a house 5 to 10 years ago. He sold it 3 years later. Bro, he made $100,000 and now he drives a giant truck and all this crazy stuff, right? So everybody is like trying to make it big with their house or their investment. But the reality is the slot machine days are over and now we are at a long-term market. So you have to have like the idea, the financial reasons are not there anymore. Just go look at YouTube, look at all the market crash stuff. Like it doesn't make sense. You're probably going to lose value on your house for the first year or two if you buy it. So you have to have strong personal reasons. And this person hates renting. This person hates moving out. He or she is very like, hey, I want to set my roots regardless of what's going on with the market. And that's the kind of thing I keep trying to get to people. Like, you need to have a strong why for moving right now. The second one by OK Owl, which was like, hey, I didn't want to deal with another crappy landlord, even with, but the big thing about this one is the interest rate, mortgage, and rent was equal. So the crappy landlord thing pops up again. I don't think people really understand how crappy it is to have a crappy landlord until they've experienced it. It's dehumanizing almost to have some other person be in control of where you live, like your basic necessities. It feels like when you're dealing from like lease to lease, it feels like you're living your life like 1 or 2 years increments. Like you're not really like fully able to enjoy yourself because our brains, we're always dealing about shelter. We're thinking about shelter, safety, security. And when that's always at risk because you're dealing with some crappy landlord that's more about making money than taking care of their situation because they're trying to make it big, being a real estate Chad daddy landlord investor guy, it sucks. And it really, really sucks. So I get that. But the big thing that the second version has is, and something you guys can really consider, is it makes sense if that mortgage number is the same as the rent number. Now, once again, not everybody has the luxury to do this, but if you do, if you look in your houses in your area and the rent is the same as the mortgage payment, then hey, that's pretty decent. Even with numbers being really crappy right now, that's pretty awesome that you have that. And if you have that, maybe you're in their camp as well. So let's continue. Javy is 500. Reddit is full of young people. Young people have trouble envisioning a mortgage being paid off. I'm 65. Ours was paid off 10 years ago. Since then, we pay only insurance and property taxes, which amount to a few hundred a month. That's our housing expense forever. We're retired now, living comfortably on a teacher's pension and a bit of farm rent. When the SS kicks in, we'll have $1,000 a month more to travel, but we won't need to touch IRAs until minimum withdrawal into our period in our 70s. If we rented a basic 2-bedroom apartment with no privacy or yard for grandchildren, we'd pay roughly $17,000 in post-tax money per year forever. That's why you buy a house. I get the reasoning. It's very easy to be in this position where like, hey, I bought my house 30 years ago and it's paid off now. I mean, it's hard. I understand the message, but we have to sometimes watch out, like especially like the boomers that are always like, oh my gosh, I don't get why it's so hard to buy right now. When I was a young whippersnapper, I graduated high school and I had a job and I bought my first house and all that stuff. Like it's really hard to compare those situations because when you bought 30 years ago, I'm not saying it was easier or harder. It was just houses were a lot cheaper, man. Oh boy, time to show the legendary Fred chart that's in every housing market video nowadays. I mean, if we go back 30 years, 1990, like, come on, man, the house's median price was like 120, 130, you know what I'm saying? So I get it. I totally get the reasoning. And yes, we are millennials like myself and, you know, the Zoomers or the Gen Zs. We're very short-term thinking. We like immediate now gratification. Very valid points and very valid points of criticism. But with the income and the wage and everything, it's really difficult to buy a house right now. Okay, I get the point, valid point, but a little different, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes, hopefully that doesn't upset anybody, but you know, sometimes the folks that are older like to throw that around. But I love this one. My dog needs a yard. I get that. I just recently, we adopted a stray who my in-laws adopted. Well, not adopted, they took her in. and they just had her for a month or two. They weren't really taking care of her. So, hey, well, we'll take care of her. And we got her, we took her to the vet. We checked if she was microchipped, no microchip. We got her vaccinated, and she's like in our home now. She's like what is it? Like a mix of an Australian Shepherd and something else. She's definitely a mutt. It doesn't matter if I have a backyard. If I don't walk her 30 minutes every morning and evening, she's like tearing up my baby's toys, tearing up my prized possessions. So having a yard isn't all that great. I'm just saying. I think I just needed to vent. That has nothing to do with the video. I just needed to vent. It'll make sense when you read this post and the rates are about 12%. I don't know. Okay. Well, all right. We don't know that. I mean, if that happens, that's going to suck. If rates get to 12%, I hope prices drop like half. No comment on that. That's crazy thing. I mean, who knows? It might happen, but I mean, also I could die of a heart attack tomorrow too. Like, am I going to think about that? You know what I'm saying? We're closing on this new construction for 7.16. We're in okay financially, planning out a family in general, tired of living in apartments, and most importantly, buying a house that we can afford given our income. We did think about waiting, but how long do we wait for? Do we continue living in an apartment even though we can afford a house? We might be paying like half a rent now than our mortgage, but is there any guarantee that mortgage payments go down overall? I don't know. Yes, rates might go down soonish, but then prices might go up. Yeah, I wish I would have bought 2 years ago, and I didn't, but the best time was when you're ready. I get that. That's definitely a tough one. And I think this relates probably to most people that are watching this. I'm guessing that's their position is like, well, maybe some of you guys are like, I literally can't afford to buy, or like someone recently posted like, oh, I'm in New Jersey. I can't even buy a little apartment or rent an apartment. And I'm like, to move? But for everyone else, I think this is like the thing. Rent is like much cheaper than buying. Why do it? Why do it? And in this case, there's two main points here that I like. The first one highlighted here is we're tired of living in apartments, okay? And secondly, buying a house that we know we can afford given our income. There is that why, right? That X factor that I tell people that you need to have right now because it doesn't make logical sense to buy. So this frustration and I'm so tired of living in apartments. Okay, that's valid. I get that. But more importantly, they can afford it given their income. So now it's just the risk of what if our value drops? What if we're going to go underwater, right? Well, hopefully that income is stable and like you didn't stretch that budget out. So you could start making, to an extra few $100s extra a month in payments so you can really start tackling that principal down. So if there is any price adjustments or price reductions, you can hopefully try to keep up with them. I don't know, as the prices go down, or really tackle that interest so that way you don't have to pay the entire amount because 7.16 is high. So even put in an extra $300 to $400 a month if you're able to, it will help you tremendously. So look up, I have a video coming up soon with Marco with Whiteboard Finance talking about that. Another solid example that maybe a lot of people will like make fun of, like, oh, this is dumb, why'd they buy? But it's their life and they went for it. You have to respect it. If you agree or disagree with someone, when someone has values like that and they stick with it, respect it. Media Corporate Tap says, there's never a good time to buy. I was a fool when interest rates were to 3 to 4% range and people were overbidding on homes due to no inventory. I found a new build with a lot of research and I haven't looked back. If you can't afford a house, buy it. There's never a good time to have a child, get a dog, get married, and etc. Life goes by unless you do something. I totally get it that if a lot of you wanted, you would, right? But right now, the fact of the matter is 20 to 30% of your net income. If that mortgage doesn't fall in that amount, then you need to wait or maybe look into other options of moving in the next year or two. I know you guys hate when I bring that up. I get it. But before you throw the tomato at your phone screen or I don't know where you're watching this, it's just a reality, right? So for those who are in a position where that mortgage payment doesn't quite add up to 20 to 30% of your net income, that might take a next year or two for you to prepare financially, save, continue to grow in your career, like pay off your credit, get your budget in line. There's so much things you guys can work on in the meantime. For everyone else that you could technically afford to live and you're just not really quite ready to make the jump, that's okay too, right? Because you're never going to feel like it's the right time. So if you have the ability to wait and because you're, in a comfortable spot right now, your landlord isn't a complete ass and you're like, hey, I think I'm going to play it easy for the next 6 months to 12 months, that's okay. Go ahead and do that. Now, if you're in a position where you're like, oh, Javier, I think I want to buy soon, just remember, other than the budget and the savings and all that being super solid, have a strong why. You have to have such a strong why that even though people are saying you are stupid for buying a house right now, you person, you're going to say, okay, but I'm buying. And that's what you're gonna have to have that, right? Which a lot of people don't fall in that category. There's only a very few amount, 6,000, like I showed you. But I hope that those people are in that position where their budget's still solid, they're buying within their net income, 20 to 30%, and all that good stuff. So, anyways, I'm looking forward to all your comments below and see what you guys have to think. YouTube thinks you should watch this video next, so go ahead and check it out now. I appreciate you guys' time and energy. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.